Well, hello, boys and girls, and welcome to StoryTime. Today, we are going to read The Apple and the Arrow. Now, this is going to take us a few weeks to accomplish. It is a picture book, but it also has chapters, so we will take one chapter a week. And now, this book is the legend of William Tell, and this has survived well since the 1200s, so for more than 700 years. And the story was told, of course, by mouth first. It became a legend, and they would share. Parents would share it with their children, grandpas with their grandsons and granddaughters. And this story is told through Walter's eyes as he and his father struggle for the freedom of their family, their village, and their country. So this story takes place in 1291, so a very, very long time ago. And we're going to begin The Apple and the Arrow by Mary and Conrad Bluff. This one has a prologue. It's like a little poem at the beginning of our story. Many, many years passed, over 600 years ago. In the year 1290, 33 men on a mountain meadow gathered together at midnight. Peaceful men, herders of cattle, hunters of chamois, skilled with the crossbow. From different cantons they came. Some hailed from Uri, others from Squizzy, still others from under Walden. And on the moonless night, over 600 years ago, 33 men talked long, seeking an answer for freedom. Seeking an answer for peace. 33 men on a mountain meadow many, many years ago. Now, before we begin, you might hear a few times the word chamois, or some say chamois, but basically it's like a goat, antelope animal that lives in the mountains of Switzerland. It lives in the mountains up there, and many would hunt these chamois up in the mountains. So, here we go. Chapter 1, A Promise. Missed it again. Go find the arrow, Rudy. It fell near that old rotten log over there, the one with the big hole in it. Walter Tell laid his Swiss crossbow on the grass and sat down on a granite rock in the green alpine pasture. He stared at the white circles he had carved on a big pine tree, the target at which he had shot all afternoon. Will I ever hit the bull's eye? He asked himself. Will I ever become a great bowman like father when I grow up? Little Rudy, his brother, and Prinz, the herd dog, scrambled about in the pine forest, searching for the lost arrow. As he waited for them to find it, Walter glanced up at the cold gray peaks of the Alps, white with autumn snow. Here it is! Prince smelled it, shouted Rudy, holding up the arrow in his little brown hand and smiling happily. Prinz barked and wagged his tail. He always barked when he found an arrow. He seemed to know that his nose was keener than even Rudy's sharp blue eyes. It was under the ferns by that rotten log, laughed Rudy as he handed it to his brother. Try again, Walter. Maybe this time you will hit it. There's the evening bell, Rudy. But I'll shoot once more. Then we must go home, for the goats are getting restless, and the wind is chilly. The goats, filling the oncoming night, were already nibbling their way downward. Standing with his legs apart, Walter placed an arrow in his crossbow and drew back the leather thong. Then, sighting the target, he suddenly unlatched the trigger. Twang! Sped the arrow. To his utter surprise, Walter saw it bury itself in the very center of the target. You hit it! You hit it! Shouted Rudy, jumping up and down in the happiness. If Father would only come now and see. Walter eyed the quivering arrow. At last he had hit the bullseye. He felt proud and happy. Then, glancing at the alpine peaks turning rosy in the sunset light, He walked to the tree and pulled the arrow from it, calling, "Come, Rudy, let's go home. It's growing colder." I wish Father would come. He's so late. When he left home this morning, he told Mother he would be back before sunset with a chamois or a fox or something. Prinz and the goats were far ahead. By the time the boys saw their log hut at the edge of the pine forest, the sun had already set. Only a faint glow still lingered on the crests of the mountains. Rudy and Walter stopped on their way downward to kneel for a moment before a humble cross built beside the path. Their father had taught them to do this. Then they chased each other down the well-worn path, and when they reached home, the goats had already huddled. Here they felt safe from the prowling bears and wolves, for in those far-off days of the 13th century, many wild animals roamed the Alpine mountains. Rudy darted into the hut as Walter grabbed a wooden bucket which hung on a peg and went to milk the goats. After his task was completed, he latched the gate and closed the pen and carried the foaming milk bucket into the cabin. This was but one room with a big table in the middle. A candle glowed on this oak table, polished from years of use. "The goats have got lots of milk tonight, Mother," said Walter gaily, as Hedwig, his fair-haired mother, took the bucket of milk. "We waited for Father until after the vesper bell rang, but he did not come. And I hit the target, Mother, right in the middle. The very last time I shot. I did, really I did, Mother. Rudy will tell you." "But why shouldn't you, the elder son of William Tell, hit the bullseye?" Hedwig laughed as she leaned down and kissed her boy. Walter knew that she was teasing, yet her words pleased him. Still smiling, she poured milk into the carved wooden bowls and thick slices from a huge loaf of rye bread. Walter and Rudy soaked the bread in milk and ate it hungrily. They felt content in their little warm hut. Their mother loved them. Besides, was not their father the best bowman in the land of Uri? "Father is late," said Walter as he drank the last drop of warm milk in his bowl. "Yes, he is," sighed Hedwig, looking at the window. "As I was weaving this afternoon on the loom, I often thought I heard his step on the trail, but only a rock slipped on the mountainside, or a tree groaned in the wind that rises from the valley at nightfall. In these days, no woman knows if her man will return home when the sun drops behind the mountain." Walter saw his mother's anxious face and said soothingly, "Don't worry, Mother. Father will come home soon. He always comes home. And with game, too, doesn't he?" "You are very young, my son," answered Hedwig softly. "You do not know all that goes on now in the land of Uri. It is not as it was when I was a child." Rudy was already asleep, his head resting on the table beside his empty bowl. Hedwig lifted him gently and carried him to bed. She slipped off his buckskin pants and removed his linen blouse. Then she laid him down on the grass-filled mattress and covered him with a homespun blanket of goat's hair. As she drew the curtain about his bed, she spoke to Walter, who was sitting on a bench munching on a tart mountain apple. "He is just a baby," she said gently. "He is always so tired at night when he comes home, yet each morning when he awakens, he is as fresh as a spring crocus." "He tried to hold the crossbow all by himself today," added Walter, smiling. "But he is not yet strong enough. Sometimes I hold it for him and let him shoot. When he presses the trigger and the arrow goes twang, he feels so big and so happy." "Just wait, son. Someday he will be a good bowman too, like your father," said Hedwig, taking up her knitting. All was quiet in the hut as Walter gnawed on the apple. He heard the wind whinnying among the pine trees. A goat bleated contentedly. Prinz barked, hoping someone would let him in. But he was not allowed in the hut. His job was to watch the goats all night long. "Mother," Walter asked at last, "why are you so sad tonight? What do you mean when you said times were better when you were a child? You warned me not to tell Rudy about the time Father and Grandfather were gone all night and did not come home until the next day. I overheard them talking. You remember? What did they do on the mountain? What did they do on the mountaintop all night, Mother? Won't you tell me? I am 11 years old now. Hedwig let her knitting fall in her lap as she looked at her son sadly. Yes, you are 11 years old, Walter, and soon you will be a man. It is too bad you overheard your father and grandfather talking together. When your father gets excited, he talks too loudly. Sometimes I fear they may even hear him in the village. You know now that some men were plotting together, and your father and grandfather were with them on the mountain. Since you know this already, I must tell you more. It may be beyond your years, but you must try hard to understand, son. You must listen carefully. Hedwig was so solemn that Walter whispered, Yes, Mother, I will try hard to understand you. His eyes were big with wonder. His heart beat fast, and he was not a bit sleepy. Years ago, began Hedwig very quietly, there was a king named Rudolph. He was ruler of Germany, Austria, and of course our canton of Uri. Also our neighbor cantons of Schweiz and Unterwalden. Each year he sent men to collect taxes from us, as rulers do. Otherwise, he left us alone. Also, once a year, he sent a nobleman to judge disputes among us. Disputes over a cow, a goat, a boundary line, or perhaps a forest. It seems there are always quarrels among people everywhere. As I said, a nobleman from Austria came yearly to judge us, and then returned to Austria again. But it is different now. What do you mean, Mother, it is different now? How is it different? Please tell me. I can understand. I am big. Hedwig put her arms around him and said, The good King Rudolph died at last, as all men must. He was a good king as kings go. Then his son Albrecht became king. Albrecht was different from his father. He believed a king should rule with a hard iron hand, and that a king should hold a tight rein over his people. He did not want us to be as free as we had always been in the canton of Uri. Why, Mother? Asked Walter, wonder in his eyes. I will tell you, son, continued Hedwig. You know the big road, the St. Gothard, that crawls up the Alps to the very top? That is the road to Italy. Yes, answered Walter. I saw a pack train go through Altdorf one day, and the boys said the horses carried fine linens and such things from Lucerne and other cities. They said the men and the horses were going to Italy. No doubt they were, replied his mother. Everyone who travels over the St. Gothard road must pay gold to Albrecht. The road goes right through Uri. And that is only one reason why the king wants our people to be tame. He gets much gold from the travelers over the road, big bags of gold. To be sure we are tame, Albrecht now sends bailiffs into the country, and these bailiffs stay here all of the time. Some of them are low-born men like Gessler at Altdorf. He is not of noble blood, Walter, but a common man like ourselves. The Gessler is always about prying into our affairs. We who have been free since there were mountains. Did you hear how Gessler put out the eyes of Arnold's old father when the bailiff could not find Arnold? Yes, grandfather told me about it, answered Walter. I have hated Gessler ever since. He must be a coward to do that to an old man. Yes, he is a coward, son, replied Hedwig. He is building that great stone castle at Altdorf too, the castle of Zwinguri. Gessler makes the peasants work on the castle, whether they wish to or not. Folks say that when the castle is finished, Gessler will live in it all of the time and watch us as a cat watches a mouse's hole, or the lion waits for the deer to graze before he springs. A part of the castle is a prison to put some independent mountain folk in when they even speak of freedom. Hedwig spoke bitterly, so bitterly that Walter became fearful. He often glanced at the curtained window, wondering if someone were outside listening. It has grown worse this year, with each year, continued his mother. At last your father and grandfather, with Arnold and Stoffacker, decided that time had come to act. It was useless to protest anymore. These 4 men talked to the friends that they trusted. Several weeks ago, 33 men, 11 from each of the 3 cantons, met at Rutley. Do you know where Rutley is, son? Yes, mother, I do, answered Walter softly, glancing at the window again, for he heard Prince bark. We passed below it once when I was fishing with father on the lake. Father said it was an open meadow surrounded by a dense forest. That is Rutley, replied his mother, a wild and lonely place, so far away from Altdorf that no soldier of Gessler's would know of it. Your father said that the 33 men argued all through the night. Not one of them wanted to shed blood, but all wanted to drive out the bailiffs. Toward morning they swore on a sword to stand together, come what may. They plan to revolt on the new year, she went on. If the people of one canton are attacked, the folk of the other 2 cantons promise to come and help them. All will fight as one nation. All will die together too, if it ever comes to that. We are a stubborn race, said Hedwig. On the new year, we will revolt then, asked Walter wonderingly. Yes, said Hedwig, determination in her voice, and that will be soon. The year 1291 will dawn soon. Gessler's stone prison will never be finished, my son. Hedwig trembled as she spoke, and Walter trembled too, for he had never seen his mother so disturbed. She was usually so quiet and very happy. So that is why I must not speak of the meeting on Rutley, whispered Walter. I understand now. Yes, that is the reason, son. Do not whisper a word to anyone, even to Rudy or Marie, the herd girl. For if it should leak out that we will revolt on New Year's Day, your own father, Walter, might be the first one to die. Promise, son, to keep this secret locked in your heart. Say nothing to no one. On my crossbow, I promise, said Walter sullenly. His heart beat fast as he was very excited. Mother, when the people revolt on New Year's Day, will knights come up into the mountains on horses, and will cannons go off and make a lot of noise? Will there be fires too? There will be fires on the mountain tops, son. Signal fires, replied his mother. But I hope there won't be real war. War means starvation and death, not only to soldiers, but to women and children too. War always means that. She sighed and rose, taking Walter by the hand. Come, son, to bed. Tomorrow dawns only too soon. Sometimes I grow afraid when your father does not come home at nightfall. I imagine him killed by one of Gessler's knights or soldiers, or perhaps blinded as Arnold's father was, so that he cannot see his way home to us. These are women's fears, I guess. Just women's fears. Sleep well, son. May you not dream of evil things. Hedwig kissed Walter and drew the curtain close about the bed. The boy lay for a long time thinking over what his mother had told him. He heard her wash the wooden bowls. The fire crackled and spit. The wind moaned among the fir trees. Although he was tired, Walter could not go to sleep at once. He tossed and turned. He heard the church bells at Berglen toll the half hour. Suddenly Prinz barked. Walter heard something heavy fall on the ground outside the hut. The great door squeaked on its rusty hinges. Walter sat up in his bed. But why do you go? Asked Hedwig sorrowfully. These are not reasons you have given me. They are not the real reasons. You jest with me. Walter heard his father reply stubbornly. I go because I must go. Hedwig, your father says Gessler is looking for trouble. He is scheming. I must learn if any of our men have betrayed us to him, if he knows about the revolt on the new year. But William, you know how quick your temper is, how sharp your tongue, how loud your voice, especially when you get excited. Please don't go to Altdorf tomorrow, pleaded Hedwig. I will keep my tongue muzzled and my thoughts to myself. Really, I will, Hedwig. I will speak only with those I trust, those I have known for years. A stone will be no more silent than I tomorrow. Walter heard his father promise. If I could only believe your words, sighed Hedwig. You have never been as silent as a stone in all the years I have known you. husband. I will be tomorrow, wife, and if you will still not trust me, well then, and the mountaineer hesitated, I will take Walter with me. A man does not take his elder son with him when he conspires, does he? Walter felt like jumping out of the bed and rushing to his father, but he knew he must not. How wonderful it would be to go to Altdorf again. He would watch the blacksmith shoe a horse. He would play in the fountain with the other village children. He might drink a glass of that sweet cider at the Baron Inn. Perhaps the bear would still be walking back and forth in his cage behind the inn, and the old eagle drooping on his perch. Altdorf was such a big place. Perhaps he might see a pack train march through the marketplace going to Italy. He might even see a knight in shining armor riding on a beautiful horse. He might see Gessler, the tyrant himself. Well, if you must go, the boy heard his mother say, at least perhaps you should take Walter. He may keep you from getting angry and talking too much. Then she added thoughtfully, I told Walter tonight that he must not mention to anyone what he overheard when you and father came home from Rutli. He is only a child, and you know how children forget and talk when they are full of a great secret. I do hope he remembers. It would be terrible if Gessler should hear of the revolt from a son of William Tell, wouldn't it? Do not fear, wife. Walter is a likely lad and an honest one, said William Tell. I am sure he will hold his tongue. He is not like his old man, is he, Hedwig? A sieve full of holes. Walter heard his father laugh as he said this, and his mother laughed too. He turned over and lay close to Rudy, for it was a cold night. He closed his eyes, and just as he drifted off to sleep, he heard his mother murmur, they sleep sweetly when they are young. And that was all Walter remembered. Well, that was a long first chapter. Next week, chapter 2, we get to learn about Altdorf and their journey of Walter and William to the big city. Until next time, may God bless you and keep you.